Welcome to Top 5, a show where we count things down from number 5 to number 1. This week, listener request, as always, Top 5 Quotable Movies. Top 5 Quotable Movies.
1 week we should just randomize the numbers.
Well, I think that's what you do, right? I mean, you just don't believe in the rankings. You just do, this one feels like this one goes here and here. And
well, that's
Matthew's a free spirit.
There you go.
I very much don't believe in rankings necessarily so much as collections. And of course, the ranking could change. Tomorrow you ask me the same question and you might get a different answer because a lot of these things are their gut instinct responses. I'm not trying to be an authority figure, you say.
Rodrigo, why don't you start us off this week with your number 5, top 5 quotable movies?
My number 5 quotable movie is at number 5.
Oh, good.
Because
that is where we keep it.
Because that is where it lives. But also because if you are familiar with this movie, once I say it, a lot of quotes might come to the fore, but we really can't say most of them. So this is a family show, so it's down here to kind of get it out of the way. My number 5 is South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a really impressive musical, but also a very quotable movie, as is a lot of South Park, right? If there's one thing that the creators of South Park are good at is kind of tuning into the zeitgeist and then giving us bite-sized things, usually with expletives on either side,
right?
That we can repeat to ourselves over and over again.
That is correct. Oh my God, they killed Kenny.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that is one.
La Resistance lives on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good one to start off our top 5 quotable movies. South Park, Bigger, Longer, Uncut. If you haven't seen it, definitely go see it. It's got the devil in it, people.
It does.
My number 5 in the quotable movies category, I think if you've got things like, guess what I am? A giant zit, or you're under double secret probation, or did we give up when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Heck no.
Forget it.
He's rolling. You have to talk about Animal House. May we dance with your dates? There's a lot of stuff to pull from that movie that just brings up a lot of memories about that movie. And of course, if you're in a bunch of like-minded companies, it's very easily to just roll those out and have everybody giggling and laughing and talking. And so my number 5, top 5 quotable movies, is Animal House. This is like I think, second week in a row or second show in a row where Animal House has appeared on my list. So,
Let's see if we can do 5 in a row where you get to reference Animal House.
Okay, Matthew, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is actually on the list, not because I quote it so much, but because everybody in my household and the entire universe quotes it nearly incessantly. And I almost didn't put it on my list because I'm almost sure that it's going to be on one of yours. But it just so happened that the night that I was putting together this particular top 5, it was on cable. And as is my wont, I had to stop and watch The Princess Bride, which is just a fountain of quotes. Goodbye, have fun storming the castle.
He's only mostly
think that means
dead.
what you think it means. Exactly. Everything out of Mandy Patinkin's mouth is genius. There are so many wonderful moments.
Hello, lady.
Yeah. Hello, lady. And, it has that mean ending Fezzik. You finally did something right. He's been doing something right for the whole show, you guys. I mean, seriously. And then, of course, Wallace Shawn. Really, everyone in that film, including the most boring character, Prince Humperdinck himself, has some really keen lines. And you get really great moments where people will sometimes reference this movie without remembering that they're referencing the movie.
Right.
One of the things you'll say inconceivable and someone will be like, I don't think that means what you think it means. And I don't always think that they realize that they're doing it. It just comes up, To the pain means I take your hands and then your feet at the ankles. And then my ears, I know, no, wrong. Your ears you keep and I'll tell you why. But I think that any movie that has, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 different characters that I can gleefully quote has got to be a winner. So that's why my number 5, The Princess Bride. Even
All
though I
right.
don't necessarily quote it incessantly the way I do my number 4 through 1.
Oh, well, we'll see what those are in just a moment as soon as Rodrigo reveals his number 4.
My number 4 is Singing in the Rain.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
And Singing in the Rain, another musical. And of course, you might think that the songs in Singing in the Rain are very catchy. But really what makes Singing in the Rain so quotable is everything that ever comes out of Lena Lamont's mouth, right?
Yes.
And I can't stand him. And, what am I, dumb or something?
She is so good.
Yeah, just great, right? It's like, talk about carrying that movie. It's like literally everybody dances and sings circles around her, but she is like the core of that movie. And everything she says, it's gold. She is simultaneously a loathsome and just incredibly like watchable villain.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just her. And there's other people get good lines a lot of the time in response to stuff that she says.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the things that come out of Lena Lamont or her misadventures, like in that silent movie where she's like moving away from the mic and then moving back towards the mic and then moving away from the mic and back towards the mic. Very memorable, very fun stuff. Singing in the Rain, my number 4.
There you go. My number 4, this movie actually took me a couple viewings to finally kind of, not get it, but finally enjoy it. Because in the first encounter, I was like, oh man, what a bunch of losers in this movie. And I'm not sure I like any of them, especially the big one that kept shouting, "Shut up, Donnie."
Oh, God.
But, when you watch it about the third time and you're finally getting into the zen of the dude and you realize that the rug really did tie the room together. And you realize that this is a comedic take on the film noir detective tale. The Big Lebowski is really a great movie and is full of quotable quotes. And I really dig it for some reason. And I find myself occasionally just quoting this just out of the blue and going, oh man, I forgot that was in Big Lebowski. So my number 4, I'm the dude. The Big Lebowski from the Coen brothers. All right,
my
Matthew.
kid has actually learned to say, I hate the F-bomb Eagles whenever they come up on the satellite radio.
All right, Matthew, it is your turn to hit a number 4.
My number 4 is a movie that I love, and it's a movie that came out at a very important time of my life. I was leaving high school, going off to college. I was blossoming from childhood into adultery, and that's probably not the word that I wanted, but we're going to go with it. And it features one of my favorite artists in what I consider to be one of his most versatile and breakout roles. Of course, the film is 1989, UHF. You get to drink from the fire hose. It's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not quite an anthology story, but it's definitely a piecemeal story that goes back and forth based on what's funny at any given time. So if, Weird Al Yankovic, the star, wants to do a 10-minute parody of Rambo, then we do a 10-minute parody of Rambo. You have these wonderful moments where Kramer from Seinfeld, before he was Kramer from Seinfeld, gets to play this really, really stupid character who's also the moral and the heart of the film. So there's a point where he's like, this mop is really dirty. Sometimes you got to get in there and clean it out. You got to clean out that mop. You got to run to the window and scream, these floors are dirty as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. It's joyful and stupid and just so much fun to yell things at people like, hey, you want a Twinkie Wiener sandwich? It's a movie that my first college roommate, Carl, and I would quote all the time. I think I still have the poster somewhere in my office, although I have the poster for everything somewhere in my office. But 1989 was a good year for movies. And even though it was overshadowed by your Batmans and your Romancing the Stones and your, Singing in the Rain Part 5, whatever it was that happened in 1989, my number 4 is still going to be UHF.
Very nice. Very, very, very nice.
Well, you got wax in your ears.
Yes, we do. Oh, wow. Are we already up to our number threes? I guess we are up to our number threes. It's going to be a very short show, people. For a movie, for a show that talks about great movie quotes, we're really blowing through this list. And I'm sure that everyone has their favorite quotes. And I'm sure that there are going to be movies that aren't on our lists. And I think that's cool, too, because, man, this was a tough one because depending on the time period, for example, and I don't know if this is on anybody's list, when I was in high school, all of my friends could quote almost the entire movie of it's the Eddie Murphy movie where he's got The Golden Child. We could quote everything from The Golden Child. Hey, Bert, did you see a little, it's just, we could quote that entire thing. But today, I don't really think about The Golden Child that much. But man, back in high school, if you would have said, oh, what movies do you quote the most from? Certainly would have been The Golden Child would have been up on my number one. Not on this list. Same way with Fletch. Man, Fletch was one that I could quote nonstop back in the day.
A blue Oldsmobile.
I'm sorry, I just ran into a water buffalo. Can I borrow your towel? Rodrigo, we are up to our number three, and I'm very interested to see what you have in your top three.
My number three is a movie that I liked a lot when I was in high school, and has really stuck with me, and was very well received at the time, and is now part of a multi-movie franchise that, in my opinion, has been run so hard into the ground, it has come out the other side on fire. I'm talking about the very first X-Men movie. I feel has a lot of great quotes. Have you tried not being a mutant?
How do you kill a frog? Is that the quote?
No.
Do you know what happens
to a toad when he's struck by lightning?
Struck by lightning. That's it. Yeah.
That's right. And that's what's great about it, is that it has quotes that just kind of work on all cylinders. It's like, here's a quote about the X-Men as an allegory for homosexuality and things like that. And then on the other hand, you have, what happens to a toad that gets struck by lightning, a quote that is a callback to a line that got edited out of the movie and thus exists in its own weird vacuum and doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite quote is again one that I'm not sure that we can say with the parental controls
with the young kids listening.
Yeah, but
darn you, young kids, we appreciate you.
We do, but it's Mystique is running amok, and Cyclops and Wolverine run into each other, and Wolverine is like, "It's me." Cyclops is like, "Prove it," and then Wolverine insults him, right? And if you remember it, it's pretty funny.
Yes,
it's a good line, very quotable. So yeah, my number three, X-Men.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that a lot. My number three is very interesting because what makes this movie quotable is the fact that so much of the stuff that makes the movie quotable are actually quotes from other movies, right?
Ooh.
Where you have one of the characters sitting there, man goes into the cage goes into the salsa, shark in the salsa shark. Our shark. A bunch of savages in this town. Hey, are you open? I assure you we're still open.
37.
All of that stuff comes from Clerks, the Kevin Smith movie. In fact, Kevin Smith is in the process. I saw on Instagram the other day that he had finished shooting back in March, and he's already got the first cut of it done. And it's Jay and Silent Bob Rebooted is the movie. But of course, that's part of the whole giant View Askew universe.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see how much referential stuff gets back into Clerks, which, launched Kevin Smith's career, gave a bunch of my generation a chance to giggle and laugh like we hadn't giggled and laughed before. I mean, literally.
You're not allowed to rent here anymore. Hey, do you sell hubcaps for a 72 Pinto hatchback? Oh, Mini Truckin' Magazine.
Do you guys rent videos?
I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Yeah. See, there's so much stuff that goes on in Clerks. And it's such a great movie. From 1994 is when it was in theaters. That's Kevin Smith's Clerks. That is my number three quotable movie. Matthew, you have a number 3, I'm sure.
I do. I'm actually sad that I did not have Clerks on my list.
That's okay.
There are certain films that I was like, I'm going to leave this one because I know that Steven or Rodrigo are going to reference this movie, and then we can all jump in and be doodly do. Clerks completely escaped me, so I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah,
I
Clerks
will
is
say
a good
this,
movie.
however.
Okay.
Yeah, my number 3 is a little older than Clerks, but I think it's just as much of a touchstone for people of Stevens and my age, which is the age of buying a minivan and talking about the marbling in the meat and, arguing whether or not the I don't know,
my
golden
joints.
parachutes.
Is it going to rain? My joints. Your joints hurt. Oh my goodness! It's going to rain. I can feel it.
But I think it's a movie that defines a generation with a number of quotes. One of which is, "We're all pretty bizarre. Some of us are just better at hiding it. That's all." Yes, my friends. My number 3 is The Breakfast Club. You mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Eat my shorts, man.
Exactly. No. The TBS version is different, Stephen. What can Claire do? There's a lot of really terrible moments in that movie, and you forget that they're terrible until you watch it. The moment where Emilio screams and smashes a door with his voice, and then it's never discussed again, is somehow overcome by the moment where Bender is just like, "Does Barry Manilow know you raided his wardrobe?" There are really, really wonderful moments. And again, it's a movie that starts, it's much like A Tale of Two Cities in a lot of ways, because it starts and it ends with very quotable moments. And this may be the only time that you hear The Breakfast Club compared to A Tale of Two Cities. And if that is the case, you're welcome. But more importantly, it's another film where everybody in the ensemble, even the people we're supposed to hate, have really great lines. You know what keeps me awake at night, Carl? When we get old, those kids are going to be taking care of us. Don't count on it. There's actually an episode of a teen kids show that my kid watches that's a 30-minute whole plot reference to The Breakfast Club. And she's like, "I don't understand why this is funny, Dad. Why is this funny?" So we had to go watch The Breakfast Club, then go back and watch the episode of the show so she could go, "Oh, that is funny." So if you're looking for an entertaining way, first of all, don't watch it on TBS. But if you're looking for an entertaining way to kill like 135 minutes, you can't go wrong with 1985's, and yes, I know I'm stuck in the 80s, The Breakfast Club. Just because it's demented and sad, but social.
I understand that. Yeah. I guess
when
we're
you grow
into
up, your heart dies.
I want to take a side trip real quick. You know when he says, "Don't count on it"?
Uh-huh.
For years, I always took that as they're going to hate you so much that they won't want to take care of you.
They won't take care of you.
But after you said it, it kind of made me think maybe the janitor looked at them kind of the same way that the vice principal did, in that, no, these kids are screw-ups. They won't know how to take care of people.
That's interesting. I don't know, because Carl he's the one character in that film who's kind of ethically neutral. He's neither, a young kid who are inherently good in the film or the authority figure that's bad, because he wanders around. He's like, "I go through your lockers. I listen to your conversations. I steal things from you guys." He's down there and he ends up blackmailing the principal, but he's also, kind of the voice of wisdom, the janitor who hears everything and isn't affected by anything. So I don't know. It's definitely an interesting take. I always took him as...
No, they're going to, for years, until this very moment. For years, it was just like, no, they won't care about you. They won't take care of you.
Yeah.
As, out of spite or out of revenge or whatever. I don't know.
You're wondering now.
Yeah, Rodrigo, do you have a thought on that?
I'm not specifically on that line, but that does happen. I mean, I've definitely gone back and watched movies and either felt that I'm like, "Oh, this is what they meant by that," or just be like, "Wow, you can actually read this in a completely different way." A lot of the times that stuff comes out in conversation too, where you're talking to someone and they're like, "Oh yeah, this character is such a jerk," and they're like, "Well, why do you think that character is a jerk?" It's like, "Oh, well, because they say this." Right. And it's like such a drastically different interpretation than from what I got from a single line, that it completely changes the direction in which you perceive that character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listeners, what do you think? Podcast, majorspoilers.com. I'm very interested in your thoughts on that. Meanwhile, while we wait for your comments to roll in, either podcast at majorspoilers.com or in the comment section for this episode, roll them in. Let us get to did we do everybody's? I think we did, right? Let's get to our number twos. Yeah. Share your number 2 with us, Rodrigo.
Okay. My number 2 is a movie that I've probably gotten into more arguments with people over this movie than any other movie around. And remember, I went to film school. It was kind of a thing to just get into fights about movies. And the reason why I've gotten into fights with people about this movie is because almost everyone that I've ever encountered, except probably a couple of people, think that this movie is bad and terrible and has no redeeming value. And I've always thought this movie was pretty good and lots of fun. And that's the 1998, I want to say, Lost in Space.
Ooh.
The 1998 Lost in Space had a lot of... the deck was stacked against it. It wasn't cool and innovative enough. It came out in 98, right? If it had come out in 99, maybe it would have been amazing. And also, everyone who already liked Lost in Space was like, "Well, what is this? This is not, this is not what Lost in Space was about." I would argue that the spirit of Lost in Space is in there somewhere. But it was so hidden by all the chrome and special effects and
Joey from Friends.
And really Gary Oldman just like obliterating the scenery. Like there are times when he's not even on stage and you can be like, God, he is acting loud. Or on screen, I guess. But yeah, so there's lots of quotes that I like from Lost in Space. Anything out of Penny, like Lacey, what's her name? Chabert, yeah. Everything she says is great. This mission sucks. There's a great line at the very beginning that is like, "Oh, recycling technology is..." Every school child knows that recycling technology will save us. And Dr. Robinson is like, "Every school child has been lied to." Like that's something that I would say to my friends all the time back in the day, and no one ever knew because no one ever saw this movie. Yep. Where did the robot cross the road? Because it was carbon bonded to the chicken. That's a good one.
Major West, I suggest you never reproduce. And by the way, that is my medical opinion.
Yep. So many things that the doctor says is like, Will see something and he gives an expletive and he's like, "A boy of your intelligence should never curse." And then he looks at it and he's like, does the exact same expletive, right? When you two boys are finished hosing the deck down with testosterone, I find a way to get us out of here. Like everything out of Mrs. Robinson's mouth is also great because she spends the entire movie trying to keep the family together. Another very underrated kind of a pivotal female role in movies, obviously. Eventually all the thought pieces about the 99 or 98 Lost in Space are going to roll out and everybody's going to say, you know what, Rodrigo was right. Anyway, my number 2, Lost in Space. LARP.
I will say that I enjoyed that movie when it came out. I know everybody hated it, but I actually enjoyed watching it when it came out. I was like, "Oh, this is a lot of fun." Yes, it's a departure from the original stuff. It's making a quality throwbacks. I bought it on DVD when it came out on DVD. But then I watched it 7 or 8 years later, and I'm like, whoa, this does not hold up. Kind of like that. Whoa, I just did right there.
Sure. Whoa, it's the 90s.
Blossom, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
See, and I wanted to love it, but I was just like, man, my brain could not get past Jonathan Harris. I could not get past the old source material. And it's another example of, I think that film would have been really more enjoyable for me if it were not called Lost in Space.
The one thing that I can really offer to the purists about Lost in Space, like if you can't get into it because it says Lost in Space and it's so different from the source material, I can give you this. At least it's not a Brady Bunch movie, a Dark Shadows, a Starsky and Hutch, where they're just going in and just making fun of the source material. Right. And by extension, you forever liking it, you 60s idiot.
Yeah, how dare you? And I want to say that they brought back Dick Tufeld as the voice of the robot, which I thought was kind of nice.
A lot of the original cast is in it. They just play like teachers on like mission command and stuff like that. So they're around, which is nice.
Yeah.
It was kind of it's really an early blueprint for what eventually Hollywood would do every week, and just kind of like repackage, like take old stuff, make a brand new movie around it, invite the old cast to have a part in it, and thus kind of try to lend it validity. But maybe it was before its time in a sense.
Mm-hmm,
maybe it was.
Yeah. Year or two ahead of its time.
Yep.
Or 10.
All right. So my number 2, I think I'm surprised myself that it was on the number 2 spot. And I know that some people are going to go, oh, no. The other movies had way more quotable quotes, like Boba Fett, or, do or do not. There is no try.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, Luke, I am your father. Those kind of quotes.
Or is one of the quotes just the name Boba Fett?
Yeah, there's
Boba Fett?
In Return of the Jedi, Chewbacca says something about Boba Fett, and blind Han Solo's like, Boba Fett?
Yeah, okay, all right.
And he's blind and he swings around and all that stuff.
Right.
But I went with the original, Star Wars, because I think there are so many great lines in that. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. These are not the droids you're looking for. Hokey religions are no match for a blaster. That kind of stuff. We used to blast womp rats.
In my T-16.
Yeah, back home. And so there's so much stuff in Star Wars that I think makes it a great quotable movie. And it's got to be on my number 2, because my number 1 I think has stuff more people recognize. I don't know. Star Wars is really recognizable.
Yeah, these aren't the droids you're looking for.
Yeah, when you say that, I mean, people know what you're talking about. When you say, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope, people know what you're talking about. And I think that Star Wars has more quotable bits than Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi.
I don't like you either.
I had, at some point, I came into possession of a Darth Vader pen. It was a pen for like writing or drawing.
Yeah, and so you tilted it one way. You tilted it one way, and Darth Vader's wearing his clothes, and then you tilt it the other way.
And then on the other way, it was Hayden Christensen.
Right.
But it had a button, and it would say a Darth Vader quote, and one of the quotes was, "I want them alive." And I remember pressing that and being like, I don't ever remember Darth Vader saying that. And sure enough, he does.
Right.
But it's like, that's the one they picked out.
Yeah. It's like pull all the quotes from Darth Vader.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, no, it's there's so much stuff in Star Wars that I had to pick that movie as my number 2, because there's so much great stuff that now I think today, especially with I've got a bad feeling about this and May the Force be with you and all this stuff, because
it's all your fault.
Yeah, this has been overused so much in all of the other Star Wars movies and in the Clone Wars and in Rebels and anything else Star Wars related.
Sure.
That some of that has lost some of its punch and some of its humor and whatnot. So maybe that's why it's my number 2, because some of those quotes are so overused. But I'm happy to put Star Wars at number 2.
Yeah.
Matthew,
it's got Peter Cushing. It's the best just because it has Peter Cushing.
Yeah, you've got a number 2. Drop that number 2 on us.
My number 2 is a wonderful, quotable, beautiful film. And it's actually one of the movies that, before I could afford cable, my wife and I would play every night to go to sleep, because the house was very drafty and would whistle. And it would make my wife really, really upset and neurotic and very, very nervous if she could hear the house whistle. So instead, I would put a tape in the VCR. We'd go to sleep. TV would turn off automatically. Everything would be fine. But it would be one of several films. And I think the one that probably stuck the most is the source of the greatest quote in the history of the known universe, which is, "The snozberries taste like snozberries." And if you're thinking Super Troopers,
we're trying to keep this as a PG-friendly show.
It's a fruit, Steve.
No, it's not.
So much time, so little to do. Wait, strike that, reverse it. Thank you. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory from 1971, my only non-80s movie. So, hey, it's not all 80s. You can't be mean to me. I will say this. If you love the sequel or the remake, the Johnny Depp version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Okay. But Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is a musical, like much of Rodrigo's list. And the music is wonderful and brain-stickingly iconic. Oompa loompa.
Yeah, or just when, what's her name, sings the song about wanting the goose. I Want It All, or whatever the name of the song is.
Yeah, Veruca.
Yeah.
Veruca Salt.
Yep.
Butterscotch, butter gin, a little something going on around here. Candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker.
My youngest really, really enjoys Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Yeah, after he read the book, we watched the movie, and he's just like, "Oh, Dad, that was so good."
Yeah, and it's carried almost entirely by the reactions of Gene Wilder to the children and the parents. And so, you of course have that sarcastic Willy Wonka meme that's running around that you can actually hear him saying things. You can hear in your head that voice. Invention, my dear friends, is 93% perspiration, 6% electricity, 4% evaporation, and 2% butterscotch ripple. But that's 105%. Doesn't matter. It's a good movie. It's not good with the math. It also has the terrifying tunnel sequence, which is in itself a long, incredibly quotable, I don't know if I'd call it spoken word performance, like a Rod McEwen thing from Willy Wonka that ends with him just screaming at the top of his lungs. And if you haven't seen it, I want you to know that I'm a grown-up and I've seen this movie 1,000 times and I love this movie and I know how it goes. And the hair on my arms is raising up right now just thinking about how creepy and completely out of place and yet somehow perfect that whole sequence is. It actually refers to the Grim Reaper, for kids. And that, of course, is an expectation of how the suspense is terrible, and I hope it'll last. My number 2, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
You think they'll ever make a Great Glass Elevator movie?
I don't think they will. And the reason why is simple. Because that first one was really, really, really well loved by everyone except for the creator. And the second one was kind of a cluster schmoz. I don't think that they're ever going to please anybody with a new version of The Chocolate Factory. I feel like you're always going to have people going, well, it's not Johnny Depp. Well, it's not Gene Wilder. You'll never get the buy-in to where enough people will fall in love with it for the glass elevator. At least, not that I can see. I've been wrong before.
Am I not mistaken? Aren't they remaking it for like Netflix or something?
Possibly.
I can't
thought
remember.
I had heard something
they're
about
doing a Roald Dahl thing
that's
for
right.
Netflix.
That's what it is.
An anthology, if you will.
Yeah, who would be Willy Wonka today? Who would be a really good person to play Willy Wonka?
My brain says Jordan Peele.
Sure,
but yeah. I don't know if that's
actually. I would say either Jordan Peele or Keegan-Michael Key for that. If you want that like high energy Wonka.
Yeah. If you want somebody who can carry that same sort of weird, crazy old, psychopath who's been living in a trailer with, small purple people for years, Mark Hamill.
What about Bryan Cranston?
Oh, Cranston would be interesting. He's better at comedy than, your Breaking Bad would make you think.
Oh no, if you've not seen him and do other things, he is really great. And I think he could really pull off this crotchety old candy maker who is looking to find not only joy in what he does again, but also pass that joy on to others.
Right. The real question,
I think he could do that.
Real question is, who are you going to get to play Grandpa Joe?
Grandpa Joe.
See, that would be the hard part.
All the really cool old actors are dying left and right.
Well, yeah, but fortunately, new old ones are becoming old all the time.
I mean,
Mandy Patinkin.
Yeah, Mandy Patinkin. Yeah, Mandy Patinkin. That would God, what an underuse of Mandy Patinkin to cast him as Grandpa Joe.
Grandpa Joe has a couple of big numbers.
I guess he does.
Though.
Yeah, he does.
Liam Neeson would make a good Grandpa Joe. I think that Mandy Patinkin might be a good Wonka.
Yeah. I think Ellen DeGeneres would make him a good Wonka.
Ooh, that would be good. Yeah, that would be really kind of
just like change nothing. Just like don't change all the pronouns to she or whatever. Just like she's just that
Mr. Willy Wonka.
Yeah, that's just who she is. Like Peter Pan it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I think that'll work.
That would be interesting. Plus, you get a good dance number from Ellen.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I think we have hit our number one spots. So, Rodrigo, please enlighten us all with your number one quotable movie.
My number one is, I think, going to be very obvious once you hear it, and also a bit of a cheat, and I'll explain why here in a sec. So my number one is Bill and Ted, and I'm kind of lumping together Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey. And
Boo.
you might say to yourself, Steven had to painstakingly look at which Star Wars movie
I know, right?
was the best one and pick the most quotable one out of those. And I say yes, because if you walk into literally any room that has one or more nerds in it and you misattribute a quote from Empire Strikes Back to, A New Hope or to Return of the Jedi, you will be murdered. But no one remembers what quote came from which Bill and Ted movie
Right.
unless they're very specific, right? It's like you might remember that station comes from the second one because there might not have been an alien in the first one, but maybe there was. I know which one each quote comes from, but I'm the sort of person that has seen both of these movies multiple times for fun.
Hey, I used to love watching Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yep. So, I mean, I would say here, if I had to pick one, I think that Bogus Journey being the weirder one has some of the better quotes. Station being one. You killed us, you evil metal something weeds.
Yeah.
Anything that death says. Don't overlook my butt. I have been working out.
The thing that really frightens me about that is that's one of the dudes who keeps showing up in all of the Stephen King adaptations that old what's-his-name does. Yep. And I'm like, oh my God, how is that even possible?
Yeah, Death from Bill and Ted is both the father whose daughters are killed in The Green Mile and the president in Iron Man 3.
Wow. That's kind of a career arc right there.
Yeah. I think he kind of peaked at death, but, what are you going to do?
I think he was the redneck in Shawshank Redemption, too.
He was, yeah. He's in Shawshank. He's in a lot of Stephen King movies. There's like that guy and, now I'm blanking on his name. But there's another guy, like skinny guy with a big nose, died recently.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I can't remember his name. And then there's the bald guy who was on The Walking Dead as Dale. I can't remember his name either.
It's kind of like they're like the Stephen King players.
Right.
All right. Thank you for that, Rodrigo. My number one, or should I say Great Scott, my 1.21 gigawatts quotable movie.
Can I just say that I called both of your number ones from the beginning of this show?
I mean,
wait a minute. You're telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean? Oh, that's heavy, Marty. Or there's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with Earth's gravitational pull? It's just so great. Back to the Future. When I went through and I said, gosh, Star Wars or Back to the Future as the number one, when you think about it, I think you have more people quoting Back to the Future than you do Star Wars. And I think more, I don't want to say normies. I think more regular people will quote Back to the Future, or at least know when you say Great Scott or you build a time machine out of DeLorean or 1.21 gigawatts, that, that is something I think more people would recognize. But if you said these are not the droids you're looking for, people might go, oh, yeah, right, Return of the Jedi or something like that.
Make like a tree and get out of here.
Hello,
McFly. Yeah, so I don't know. I went with Back to the Future.
Density.
Yes. Yeah. And the interesting thing about the 1.21 gigawatts, I'm sure everyone knows this already, but back in 1985, they didn't know how to pronounce gigawatt. And so somebody on set was just like, I think it's gigawatt. And so they just went with gigawatt. So there you go. A little bit of history on one of your most famous quotes of all time when it comes to movies. Okay, that is my number one. Matthew, what do you have for your number one?
I think we're going to go for the trifecta of predictability, or as we like to call it, the prefectadictal. Because my number one is actually, it reminds me of something strange that happened this morning. It was this dream where I saw myself standing in kind of sun god robes on a giant pyramid with thousands of naked women screaming and throwing little pickles at me. Why am I the only one that has that dream? Real Genius from 1985. This is a movie that I imprinted on heavily in college, probably to the detriment of really everyone around me, because the main character is a very intelligent young man who ends up surrounded by well-spoken, snotty, intelligent people who say really terrible, rude things. And when you say really terrible, rude, snotty things to people, they don't like you. So I discovered the hard way the truth of that, but I also discovered that sometimes when you can say clever things, as you know, Dr. Hathaway says, when you're smart, people need you. You're better than them, Mitch. And this is a movie that is full of just little bits and pieces that I actually repeatedly say over and over and over. Rue that day, who talks like that? One that I keep saying is, Mitch, I used to be you, and lately I've been missing you. So I asked Hathaway if I could room with me again, and he said, sure. There's a lot of heart in the movie, but mostly it's kind of fast-paced back and forth, Mike Nichols, Elaine May stuff, with some crude humor involved. There are a few, scatological jokes and things that refer to inappropriate behavior that we don't talk about on the top 5 because we're very classy.
Wieners and poo-poos, yeah.
Yeah, the pee-poos and the peeps and the poops. But, it also has that beautiful moment at the end where Kent is just like, hey, Jesus, let me have it. And then, of course, a giant laser goes through the wall and you had to be there. But
Jiffy Pop, man.
Yeah, it's okay. It's popcorn. Everybody hates popcorn. Oh, man, that's so unfair. We were going to make you King of the Winter Carnival. And that's why my number one couldn't be anything other, if you've ever met me, than Real Genius. I think that Chris Knight is kind of my Patronus. If I had a wand, it would cast a young Val Kilmer wandering around and telling people that he wears that thing on his head because if he wears it anywhere else, it chafes.
There you go. Listeners, there you go. Rodrigo, there you go. Matthew, there you go. Everyone's top 5 quotable movies.
Wherever we go, there we are.
That's right. I mean, Buckaroo Banzai didn't make it on my list, and it could have. Raiders of the Lost Ark didn't make it on my list. Nazis, I hate these guys. I mean, snakes, why did it have to be snakes? Yes. Bad dates. Bad dates.
I feel that the most movies in the Disney Renaissance are hugely quotable. Aladdin, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Clueless.
Right.
Yeah. I hate them as people. I want to punch them in the face, but I cannot deny the sheer joy of just going, Matt Gaming.
Yeah. Those guys are good at that.
Oh, yeah. All of their movies. I mean, if you ever see Basketball, which is a terrible movie, and don't see it, it has such wonderful moments as something I can't say on the show, something that I won't say on the show, and something that no one should ever say to anyone ever. So go watch that movie and figure out which quotes I'm talking about.
There you go. Listeners, we want to know what your top 5 quotable movies are. There's a link right in the show notes. Just, I think especially if you're on the Apple Podcast app, if you go in and it says website for this episode, if you click on that, it'll take you right to the page for this episode. And then you can scroll down to the comments section and you can say, hey, here are my top 5 quotable movies. The Nutty Professor, The Golden Child, Beverly Hills Cop, Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Yeah.
Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Trading Places.
No one puts
Gremlins.
Beverly Hills Cop 3 on their list.
Wait, Eddie Murphy's not in Gremlins, is he?
No.
I'm thinking of Phoebe Cates. I always get them confused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had a friend who got Mandy Patinkin and Daisy Fuentes confused.
Wow.
Which was just great. Just really fantastic. At least in the late 90s, it was really great. Eventually, it just kind of got really weird.
All right, listeners, you know what to do. Not only give us some likes there on the Apple iTunes, Apple Podcast Store, wherever it is. Make sure you share it with all your friends. And then share your top 5 quotable movies because everyone loves a list.
This podcast is copyright 2019 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.